we learned of 7 new cases in Oregon, bringing the total number of cases in our state to 14.
Now on KGW News at 5, the number of COVID-19 cases doubles in Oregon, prompting a state of emergency. What the declaration from Governor Brown means in the fight to contain the spread. Plus,
in this time of the coronavirus, everyone is just being careful, being sensible about it.
Taking extra steps to stay healthy. From a change in communion at Catholic Mass to canceling events, communities are getting proactive about prevention. And with store shelves stripped of everything from sanitizer to soup, businesses are being warned against raising prices on in-demand items. Your News at 5 starts now.
Good evening, I'm Brittany Falkers, and there are now 14 cases of COVID-19 in Oregon, and we've just learned that one of those cases is a student at South Meadows Middle School in Hillsboro. We'll hear from health officials in about an hour, bringing you the latest on air and online. And in light of the new cases, Governor Kate Brown declared a state of emergency. That just means more people and more resources can be devoted to stopping the spread of the virus. Lindsay Nadrich joins us now with what we learned today. Lindsay.
Yeah, well, before we get into the number of cases and where they are, keep in mind that most people who get COVID-19 will only have minor symptoms similar to a cold. So today, health officials focused on protecting people who are likely to develop more severe symptoms. The most at risk are older adults and people with underlying medical conditions. At a press conference Sunday morning, state health officials announced 7 new cases of COVID-19 in Oregon, which brings the total number of cases in the state to 14. It prompted Governor Kate Brown to declare a state of emergency.
This emergency declaration gives the Oregon Health Authority and the Office of Emergency Management all the resources at our state's disposal to stem the spread of this disease.
Some of those resources include using emergency volunteer healthcare professionals, expanding telemedicine to screen people, and expanding testing. Of the 7 new cases, 3 people were already in the hospital when they were diagnosed. The other 4 are recovering at home and only have mild symptoms. As for where the new cases are, one is in Douglas County. We're told that person is medically stable. One is in Marion County, and 5 are in Washington County.
4 of the 5 new cases in Washington County are related to contacts of previous identified cases.
None of the new cases are related to travel. Most people who get COVID-19 will only have minor symptoms, similar to the common cold.
What we do know is that most people who get COVID-19 are going to experience mild symptoms. We know from data collected nationally and internationally that most people who contact COVID-19 experience symptoms similar to the common cold, a cough, a runny nose.
The people most at risk are older adults and people with underlying medical conditions.
COVID-19 can present as a mild illness. We want people to take this seriously and take measures to protect those that are most vulnerable. So we ask you, if you have any illness symptoms, please do not visit people in hospitals. Please do not visit your loved ones in long-term care facilities.
And if you're in that high-risk group,
Older populations, those with chronic medical conditions, we're recommending to stay out of large public areas, stay away from people who have symptoms, and to take care at home when you can.
All right, so in the next hour, we're expected to hear from the superintendent of the Hillsboro School District to talk about the student there that was diagnosed with COVID-19. We'll bring you updates as we get more information. Otherwise, though, the Oregon Health Authority does not recommend closing schools or college campuses right now where there are no cases of COVID-19. And again, if you feel sick and wouldn't normally go to the doctor, health officials say to stay home until you feel better for at least 24 hours. Brittany.
All right, Lindsay, thank you. And checking in on Washington's numbers, 3 more deaths were reported, bringing the total to 19. Now, the majority of the deaths are out of King County. They're tied to an outbreak at a long-term care facility in Kirkland. 117 others in the state have tested positive for the virus, including 1 person in Clark County. Governor Jay Inslee says he's now considering putting mandatory measures in place, like canceling large social events, to try to keep the virus from spreading. And Washington is the epicenter of the U.S. outbreak. Nationwide, 22 deaths have been reported. All but 3 are from Washington. 2 deaths were reported in Florida, another in California. More than 530 people have tested positive for COVID-19. There is good news for more than 3,500 people stranded aboard the Grand Princess cruise ship, which has been held off the coast of California. It will be allowed to dock at the Port of Oakland, likely tomorrow. Nearly 24 people on board tested positive for COVID-19. They'll be hospitalized once back on land. The other passengers will be quarantined in federal isolation sites. And global containment is underway as the coronavirus continues to spread worldwide. Italy is now trying to enforce very strict measures after reporting more than 360 deaths and more than 7,300 cases. About a quarter of the Italian population is now living under some sort of quarantine. In some northern and central provinces, the areas most affected, the government isn't allowing people to go out to the movies or bars, and there's limited hours to go out to eat at restaurants. Mass there is also restricted. Now, the Catholic Church announced changes to Holy Mass this week to try and stop the spread of the virus. They asked church leaders to drain water fonts and stop offering the chalice with the blood of Christ during communion. The Archdiocese recommended skipping over the sign of peace or doing it without a chance for people to touch and spread germs. And they advised against holding hands or shaking hands at any point before, during, or after Mass.
The one thing I found is that after Mass, it's very difficult for me as a priest when I'm greeting people not to say, good morning, how are you, nice to see you, and put my hand out. So now we just have to sort of put our hands behind our backs, which is the safest way to do things.
If anyone feels sick at all or is older, the church excuses them from Sunday worship and asks that they stay home. In Mass at the Grotto on Sunday, we're told we're told there were less people than usual.
I prefer to hug and shake hands, but we're going to follow what we're asked to do, and we're all going to be taking good precaution in the travel world or in our work world, in our family life. We'll just take good, ordinary precautions like we do with the flu, but we don't live in fear. We have our faith.
The Archdiocese asks that everyone, especially those involved in ministry, wash their hands frequently. They offer all of the same advice during the flu season every year. And of course, washing your hands, that's good advice for everybody. We know we sound like a broken record here, but the CDC says this is one of the best ways to protect yourself from getting sick. Wash with soap and warm water for at least 20 seconds. And if you don't have soap, hand sanitizer is your next best option. The CDC says try to find some with at least 60% alcohol. But finding sanitizer in stores might be a bit of a challenge. It's been hard to find on store shelves. And if you go online, some bottles are being marked up insanely high. Oregon's Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum is trying to crack down on this price gouging. She says if you spot anything that doesn't seem right, report it. You can call the consumer hotline. It's right there at the bottom of your screen. That's 1-877-877-9392. Now, from changes to Mass to canceled events due to the coronavirus, Emerald City Comic-Con in Seattle has been postponed. Emerald City is one of the Northwest's biggest comic conventions. Many local artists from here in Portland are impacted financially by its postponement, especially those freelancers. But a number of Portland comic shops are offering an alternative. They're joining forces for PDX Pop-Up Con. It'll take place next weekend at a number of shops throughout the city. As for Emerald City Comic-Con, that's likely to be rescheduled for sometime this summer. And if you're interested in the pop-up event, you can find more on our website. And there you're also going to find the latest information from trusted local health officials. And you can find that at kgw.com/factsnotfear or download the KGW News app. Stepping up and making a positive impact for lung health. Today, dozens of people skipped the elevator and instead climbed 40 stories at the U.S. Bancorp Tower. It's called the Fight for Air, and it's a fundraiser for the American Lung Association. Becky Olson, the co-founder of Breast Friends in Tigard, is fighting breast cancer, and now it's metastasized to her lungs. Today, a team came together to support her.
It's kind of overwhelming, actually, just to know that people care enough to do something. When Barron told me he was going to run 40 flights for me, it kind of made me cry a bit, I have to say. It's not something that people choose to do normally, to do something like that, but it just really touched my heart.
Barron Robinson was part of that team. He's the executive director of kickingcancer.org. He says he's been gearing up for today's climb for the last few months.
Yeah, it's 40 flights. And the crazy thing is that you can actually do this up to 5 times. So you can do 40, 80, 120, 160, 200. Becky told me I only had to do it once.
And now, according to the event's website, the stair climbing adventure raised more than $72,000 for the American Lung Association. Great work to all those climbers.